And we want to stay with this story now and bring in Michel Drapeau. He's a former Canadian Armed Forces member and now a military lawyer and law professor. He's represented members of the military who have experienced sexual misconduct in the armed forces, and he's in Ottawa tonight. Hi there. Thanks so much for being with us.
Hi.
So maybe let me ask you first, what you took away from today's testimony. What did it show the general public about the military and how it deals with allegations of sexual misconduct?
The contrast was very eloquent. We had a young lieutenant commander who, in fact, by the duty given him by the Queen's Commission as an officer, he received a complaint from a female subordinate, and he did the honorable thing. He did, in fact, what was expected of him, to report, to provide support at the risk of his career. As we found out, he wasn't well received. He had runabout. He had to go to various offices, and he put, in fact, a finger on one of the issues that a complainant, if they act by themselves and they try to go to the reporting center that was set up under the control of the deputy minister, it doesn't do anything for them. They get the runabout. But we saw this individual being persistent, being honest, being open, and wishing really to do his duty. On the other side, we saw the highest ranking official at the Department of National Defense. He's been in position for over 5 years at the moment, which is quite unusual. And he has immense responsibilities. To him, he has an army of assistants and advisors, including the Judge Advocate General reports to him, the assistant deputy ministers, commanders of command, and so on and so forth, to turn to advice and to support and so on. And what happened is he has, through his testimony, then as today, he has seen nothing, he has heard nothing, he's done nothing, and he's trying to convince the public that it's nothing that could have been done. I'm sorry, I don't accept that for 1 second. We don't expect him to transform himself into a board of inquiry or transform himself as a police organization. But at the very least, as a minimum, he could have asked, he could have received the piece of paper that was trusted to him by the ombudsman to recognize maybe the parameters of what was all about. He may have asked his deputy minister or the JAG, which for him, to maybe have a private exchange with the then General Vance to see what was this all about, if anything. And then depending on the response or the absence of response, then make a decision on the advice of these advisors to either leave it to the police or in fact pay no attention to it because it was found to be frivolous or whatever. But that did not happen at all. He just elected not to do, not to say, if he did not, he was the only one. The ombudsman had no authority given a ministerial directive to do investigation. Ombudsman could not go and investigate the chief of the defense staff. He could not. He would not proceed with a complaint to anybody else except to his boss. That's what the regulations, the directives said. He reports to the minister. And the ministers could ask a whole series of people, as I said, including PCO, what do I do now? What do we do now? He elected to do nothing, and he went on to allow the Chief of Defense Staff to serve for another 3 years before we commence to get to the bottom of it. We haven't done this yet.
So, Michel, I think all of this kind of exposes, as you said, the bureaucracy, the red tape, the people saying, well, this isn't my department, this isn't my job, I don't want to know about it. I think at the end of the day, it just shows or exposes how difficult it is to address these allegations, even when there is a willingness to by certain individuals. What do you think it will take to address this issue that has been going on for so many years? As I mentioned, you have represented women in the forces as well. How do we deal with this?
Justice Eterno, who happens to be a good friend and a co-author in a couple of military texts that we wrote together, he says it all. In 1997, he chaired a commission of inquiry into the deployment of the Airborne Regiment to Somalia. His report, tabled in 1997, in the important, central part of his recommendation, given what he saw then, which was an absence of leadership from the high command, he said we should name an inspector general, someone who's independent, someone who has the the power, the capacity to investigate, to inspect, and to report to Parliament. His recommendation went nowhere. Now, he didn't invent this. I mean, the position of Inspector General exists in many other democracies to keep civilian control over the military. Canada does not. The United States does, Germany does, Australia does, Holland does, and I could go on, the list is long. Why? Because Parliament has a responsibility to keep civilian control over the military. In Canada, it doesn't happen, and I qualify it as a state within a state. As soon as there is an issue, normally the reflex by successive government has been to turn it over to the military, let them fix it. I'll give you one example. In 1998, at the request of the Defense Department, with no real debate in Parliament or parliamentary committee, Parliament decided to turn over jurisdiction for the investigation and the prosecution of sexual offense to the military. At the time, in 1998, the military did not have a judiciary, did not have a police force that knew anything about the prosecution of sexual assault. Overnight, they were given that. And since then, it went from bad to worse.
All right.
That should be taken back and given back to civil authorities. That will solve the issue, plus an Inspector General.
All right, Michel Drapeau, we'll have to leave it there. Michel Drapeau, a military lawyer and former Canadian Armed Forces member. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us tonight.
Thank you. Bye-bye.